Você, você, você. Você, você, você.
You don't know me, yet I should. The phrase "don't judge a book by its cover" is an expression that advises against making judgments or forming opinions about something or someone based solely on their outward appearance or initial impressions. Let's face it, first impressions are just that, initial judgments or opinions that we form about someone or something based on our first encounter or just a brief interaction. And let's be clear, how much could we really understand in those moments? If people are not their behavior, then it makes us really have to stop and think. They are often based, these things, on limited information, external appearances, or let's call a spade, superficial cues. And in a literal sense, judging a book by its cover means forming an opinion about a book solely based on its appearance, its design, its cover, a name on the page, a title, without really considering its content, themes, or even the quality of what's inside. And I think judging a book by its cover, the phrase itself, tells people or encourages people to look beyond the superficial attributes and start to take the time to explore and evaluate the true value or merit of something or someone. And certainly if the thing is a book, a person, an idea, or a situation. As someone who has been faced with preemptively combating first impressions, I can say that first impressions can be misleading and downright incomplete. And you know what they say about assuming? We know what it is, right? Making an ass out of you and me. Making assumptions about something or someone solely on their appearances has proven problematic and in fact many times tragic. So, while first impressions can be natural and instinctive, come on, we all have them. Nobody's removed from this. We've all done it. They're not always accurate. And we know they're not always reflective of the true nature of a person or situation. How many times people have said to me when they got to know me, you know, when I first saw you, I thought of this, and I looked at them and kind of go, really? Seriously? It's never really accurate. So it's important to recognize that our initial perceptions may be influenced, and we may not all want to admit it, but let's, as said, get real. This is a race of living. We get real here. We are transparent. We're authentic. So it's important to recognize that our initial perceptions may be influenced by biases, stereotypes, or even preconceived notions. And these snap prejudgments can lead to so many misunderstandings and even more unfair assessments. There's a degree of unfairness. There's a degree of inaccuracy to make judgments or draw conclusions without first delving deeper and gaining a more comprehensive understanding of the subject. Look at some of the tragedy that has happened over the years. We see it all the time in news and media. You know, the young boy that went to pick up his siblings and asking for help and knocking on a door and getting assaulted and hurt, deeply wounded because of this very thing. And even just in everyday, day-to-day, without getting to that tragic level, that type of tragic level, it has implications and impacts, career-wise, personal-wise, in the schools, for heaven's sake. And it just permeates our everyday. It permeates our environments. It permeates all our interactions and touch points. But we have control over that. We have the ability to be honest with ourselves and say we do this, and also set a precedent to curb the behavior. The expression "don't judge a book by its cover" really aims to promote fairness, open-mindedness, and the recognition that appearances can be deceiving. What that expression does is it encourages everyone to delve deeper, seek more information, and consider a broader perspective before making judgments. And it's applicable in various contexts. Evaluating the quality of work or an idea coming from someone based solely on its initial presentation or making assumptions about someone's character without truly knowing them cannot be considered right. We can get comfortable doing it to the point that we don't even notice we're doing it, or thinking we're better than somebody because of something silly. The color of their eyes, and I'm being, I'm exaggerating because I really want us to understand what we do. I really want us to understand, and I don't believe anyone can say and raise their hand and say, I don't do that. When we go and we interact with different cultures and different people, and we start to see what certain actions and things mean to them, what foods they eat, and start to explore that and start to bridge a gap of understanding between those things, we also get to see that is breaking down some kind of preconception we had. And we can honestly then say to them, oh, I thought this or I heard this, and they can correct us. The underlying message is that appearances can be deceiving, and it is important to withhold judgment. It's important to do so until we have gathered more information or gained a much deeper understanding. And by not prematurely judging based on superficial factors, and let's face it, they really are superficial, let's hold ourselves to a higher standard. We open ourselves up to the potential for greater understanding, empathy, compassion, and appreciation of the complexities beneath the surface. The saying, don't judge a book by its cover, encourages us to be mindful, empathetic, and willing to explore beyond surface level impressions. It enables us to gain a more accurate and comprehensive understanding. And all of us deserves that. All of us. We would like it for ourselves. We should want it for others, both from the way we conduct ourselves and the way others conduct ourselves to us. There's another saying, treat everyone the way you would want to be treated. And that has merit in this discussion because it emphasizes the importance of looking beyond superficial qualities and taking the time to understand the true nature or value of someone or something before forming an opinion. When we adhere to these two things, don't judge a book by its cover, treat everyone the way you would love to be treated, we challenge ourselves to look beyond the surface and give individuals or situations a fair chance. It encourages us to withhold judgment, suspend assumptions, and remain open-minded. It reminds us that there is often more to discover, understand, and appreciate about our fellow man that is beneath the initial impression. We don't always show up in our best light. It all depends what's going on around us, how we're managing our emotions, how we're conducting ourselves, how we're emanating, how our rhythm is at that point. Is our frequency high? Is our frequency low? Have we just been hit with, all sorts of different things we didn't expect, and so our mood is a little off? We all go through those things. We don't always show up as our best self. And it's time that we start to understand the humanness of that. Start to understand our own humanity and vulnerabilities within that humanity. And it's time that we breathe and really lead with love, as I always say. When you put love right in front of every step that you make, every handshake that you stretch your hand out to make, when you put love on there, you cannot do these things that I'm talking about. You can't prejudge. You can't apply stereotypes. You can't even get angry because you are looking from a lens of love. Doing the behavior of prejudging, making assumptions, leverage, taking opinions from first impressions, applying biases, can have significant societal impacts. And it can have those impacts both on an individual level and on a broader societal scale. Certainly as a person going out into this world on a day-to-day basis, I have certainly been hit with some of these things. And what we're trying to do is combat discrimination and inequality. Prejudices lead to this, stereotyping, and this is like oversimplifying with often, just inaccurate generalizations about certain groups and people and individuals and cultures. And these things can perpetuate the very things that we're talking about stopping. And they can put limitations on our understanding. And more importantly, it can hinder interactions that have meaning between individuals. It can provide missed opportunities because you may overlook really valuable connections. You may dismiss someone and people that can actually help you, support you. You may dismiss friendships potential or even collaborations that can be formed. And all it needed was taking the time to go beyond a handshake, taking the time to go beyond a short interaction. It can create social division. That's the us versus them mindsets. And they can, perpetuate tension, conflicts, and tragically even violence, as I called out earlier. What about negativity? People who are faced with these types of things as a result, the receiving party of this type of mindset and actions and activities, internalize these things. And then they perform in ways that align with those expectations. And then they become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I've talked about this in the illusion of truth effect as well. So you can get self-fulfilling prophecies. And this happens a lot in the school system. I've seen it. I've experienced it. If a teacher thinks you are incapable, more than likely, your marks, your performance will show that you're incapable because you've taken on their impressions of you. You've internalized it and then you start doing and fulfilling their expectations. And I've talked about this as well across the seasons of this podcast. It can create unfair criminal justice system. Biases, all of these things lead to this. Because there's in law enforcement and the criminal justice system can provide disproportionate targeting, profiling, even sentences of certain groups and people. And this leads to back to the discrimination and inequality we started to, because you can then have systemic inequalities that erode trust overall. And let's talk about the mental health aspect of things. What I call mental wealth, literally withdrawing from your wealth account. When you're judged unfairly, impacts self-esteem, confidence, and overall well-being. Because constantly facing these things leads to feelings of isolation, frustration, and helplessness. And sometimes we can even go to hopelessness. And it reduces our approach to diversity, our embracing of diversity and inclusion. It reduces performance and participation in many social settings, from professional, educational, and just social gatherings. And it continues. Did you think the list would be this long? There's a long list of how this impacts. There's economic implications because it can impact hiring and promotion, which means you can overlook qualified individuals. You can reduce your talent pool and you can hinder economic growth. Think about that. How is this serving us? How is this behavior serving us? It can even undermine relationships because forming genuine connections and building actual meaningful, trusting, embracing relationships becomes a challenge, especially when we're constantly being judged, when things are being said that marginalizes you and insults or even puts you down. And it shows ignorance. So it's crucial that this podcast promotes awareness, delves into education and empathy, As I said, I've lived this my whole life. And of course, there's moments of reprieve from it. But then you encounter one little situation, whether you encounter it once a year, it's once a year too much. And the way to do this is with these types of broadcasts, with these types of discussions. Foster an open dialogue and actively seeking to understand yourself first and then understand others can contribute to being more inclusive and equitable. And that's what we're saying, diversity, equity, inclusion. That's what we want for our society. That's what we want in every area of a touch point with others. This is what we want to see. And the way to see it is to frankly talk about these things. So, just taking the time. At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. Take the time. Do not presume. Take the time to learn about, be willing to explore, discuss, embrace, have fun, and just observe behaviors and actions can even go a long way to providing more accurate and nuanced understanding of those around us, of them to us, and me to them, and all of us to us. All of this can be so much more embracing and safe and inclusive. Now, with all that said, why didn't I call this episode Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover?
Welcome back everyone to Arrays of Living. You just listened to part 1 of episode 1 of season 4, You Don't Know Me, Yet I Should. Now, stay tuned for part 2, which is going to come out next week. Make sure to follow Jenn Drakes on all social media platforms so you don't miss out on the next episode. Also, join our Catalytic Club Discord to get exclusive news about Jenn Drakes. Thank you for listening.